What's the number one question my personal tutees ask me at uni? It's how do I do proper referencing in my essays? Okay, so let me talk you through that. Hello everyone, welcome to The Attic. My name's Mark Jago. I'm a professor in philosophy in the UK. I'm doing a series of videos trying to answer the kind of question that my first year students and tutees tend to ask when they get to uni. In this one, I'm going to be focusing in on how to do referencing, plagiarism, that kind of stuff in essays. So it was kind of surprising to me that this was the most popular question that my students asked me, and some of the students were getting really het up about this. Like they were really worried about how do I do proper referencing? I just can't work this stuff out. Plagiarism, it's really worrying me. And, I'm surprised because it's not that it's not important. It's just that I can basically show you how to do that in 5 minutes. And in fact, I am going to show you how to do that in 5 minutes. So I'm going to tell you what plagiarism is, why it's bad, how you avoid it by doing proper referencing, and then I'm going to take you through an example of how you actually do proper referencing in your essays. So if that sounds good to you, do me a favor, give this video a big old thumbs up. That helps other students to find it. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notifications? Okay, so let's start with plagiarism. This is something an awful lot of students worry about. Typically when you get to university week one, you're told about plagiarism, you're told it's super bad. Maybe you have to sign something that says, I understand what plagiarism is, and I understand that it's a kind of a serious academic offense, and it's going to give me 0 in my essays if I do it, and I promise not to do it, and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so what is it? Plagiarism is presenting somebody else's work or ideas as your own, with or without consent, by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement. Okay, so a few things to notice about that. One is it says with or without consent. So it kind of doesn't matter whether you're doing it behind their back or whether they've said, yeah, use my words. You still have to acknowledge that it is somebody else's words or ideas. Secondly, this is what's called a strict liability offense. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you intended to do it or kind of just did it by accident. It's the mere fact that you're doing it, presenting somebody else's words without acknowledging it properly, that constitutes the offense. So even if you didn't mean to do it, you still plagiarized, still get the penalty. Plagiarism, it's an academic offense. It gives you a penalty. It's not often, I don't think, done intentionally. Like, I don't think people are trying to cheat. Usually when it's done through bad academic practice. So you're doing your research, you grab a few quotes from here and there, you write the quotes down, you forget to write down who said the quote, and then later on when you actually write up your notes, you think that that's stuff that you wrote, so you wrote it up in your essay. Okay, bad practice there, bad research practice. Basically, to avoid that, every time you're pulling in quotes from different sources, write down the source so it's really clear to you that this is somebody else's words, somebody else's ideas. Then you won't do plagiarism by accident. What are the penalties for plagiarism? Well, it kind of depends what your university's code of practice says, but typically you might get marked down for that particular section of the essay. You might get 0 for the whole essay. You might get 0 for that whole module. And if you do this stuff enough, so probably not on your first offense, but if you keep doing it, you might get called in and you might be looking at failing the year or having to resit the year or whatever. So it can get really serious. But look, it doesn't have to be an issue at all because it's super simple to avoid this with proper referencing. And proper referencing, it's easy. Let me show you how. So basically, with proper referencing, all we're talking about is whenever you use somebody else's words or ideas, you attribute those words or ideas to that person. So if you're using somebody else's ideas, you say, these are this person's ideas, and you put in a reference. If you're putting in somebody else's words, like their exact words, then you use quote marks in your essay and you use a reference. So let me take you through that process. Okay, so suppose I'm doing my philosophy essay and the set title is, Do Impossible Worlds Exist? Okay, if you're not a philosophy student, or even if you are, don't worry about what that means. I'm just using this as an example of how you do referencing. Okay, so here I am. I'm trying to do my essay. I want to say something in it like, I will argue that impossible worlds don't exist. My main argument will be that, what's going to be my main argument? So what am I going to do? I'm going to go over to Google. I'm going to type in impossible worlds. Let's see what we get. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. That sounds useful. So let's click on that. What have we got here? Load of stuff. Reasons for introducing impossible worlds. That sounds good. So we'll click on that. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm trying to find some arguments that back up my claim that impossible worlds don't exist. Let's see what we can find. Okay, here's something. Taking quantification over any kind of entity whatsoever at face value, just because it's embedded in ordinary language, doesn't look like a promising general strategy. If you don't know what's going on there, kind of doesn't matter because I'm just using this as an example. So let's copy that over to my essay. There it goes. So now I've got a nice sentence. My main argument will be that taking quantification over any kind of entity whatsoever, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what I've got there at the moment is plagiarism. Straightforward case of plagiarism because I've taken somebody else's words and I've just dumped them into my essay and I've presented them as my own. There's no kind of acknowledgement there that there's somebody else's work's gone into it, that there's somebody else's words, no reference, no nothing. And if you do that, chances are you're going to get caught and done for plagiarism because most universities, they run essays through a plagiarism checker, which basically kind of checks around a bunch of sources. It can easily check on Google just like I did, and because that's an online source, it will find that in an instant. And even if it's not going through a plagiarism checker, I think it would be pretty easy for a university marker to look at that and think that something is a bit sus. So I might read that sentence and go, oh, that's a good sentence. That kind of sounds a bit like something that I would write. Oh, hang on a minute. That is something that I wrote. I wrote exactly that sentence and you've just copied it. Okay, so plagiarism is often easy to spot. So basically, don't do it. How do we avoid it? We do it with proper referencing. What do we have to do? So this here is an exact quote, okay? It's somebody else's words exactly. So what we need to do is put quote marks around it, like so. And we need to put a reference in. So references work like this. We're going to use the Harvard system of references. So we're going to put something in the main text and we're going to put something in the bibliography. So the reference goes in the main text. It goes in brackets like this. And then in the bibliography, I put a corresponding full entry that describes that whole work. Luckily, since I've got it from the Stanford Encyclopedia, I can pull up citation info and it tells me here how I should cite this work. So I can just copy and paste that. Bang, there it goes. You can copy and paste citation info. That's not plagiarism because it's not somebody else's words or ideas. It's a reference to the piece of work we're talking about. If I copy and paste it from somewhere else, it won't always be in exactly the right format. If I get them from lots of different places, the format will be different for all of them. So it can be nice to kind of just get them all looking the same. So the way I would do this is to go, that's my name there. And then 2018, and then we can get rid of that. Okay, so if we're getting super detailed, you might want to look at your university's recommended way of giving references. I think most of them say, we kind of don't care exactly how you do it as long as it's consistent throughout your bibliography. But typically you're going to have author or authors' names first, then the year, the name of the article or book, if it's an article, the journal or encyclopedia that it's from. If that thing's got an editor, you give their name. And then you say kind of the information about it. Page numbers if it's in a collection or in a journal. If it's a book, you would say who the publisher is. This one happens to be an online one, so we give the URL. Okay, simple as that. So for each reference, you're doing two things. You're giving a reference up here in the main body of your article. And then you're giving a corresponding full kind of bibliographic information in your bibliography. Now, usually when you're doing a quotation, you will give the page number as well. So if this was a quotation from a book, let's say it was on page 20, what I would do is I would write Berto and Jago 2018 20 or page 20. But because it's from an online encyclopedia and that doesn't have a page, we don't put a page number in. Okay, so that's how we do referencing. That's how we do citations. If you're doing a direct quote, you're copying somebody else's words exactly. You put them in quote marks, you give a reference, and you add that thing into the bibliography. What about if you're not doing that, but you're still using somebody else's ideas. Now, look, you don't want your essay to be chock full of quotations. You don't want it to be this kind of like quote salad. You want to explain stuff in your own words much more than you use quotes. You use quotes sparingly when you have to be kind of really clear about what the author's said. So kind of here, I probably wouldn't do a quote. If I want to get this idea across in my essay, I would prefer to do a paraphrase. That's where I take the idea from the article and I rephrase it in my own words, my own terms, okay? Even if I'm doing that and I'm rearranging the words so it's my own expression, it's still somebody else's ideas. So I still need to put the citation in it. So it might go a bit like this. So rather than saying taking quantification over any kind of entity whatsoever at face value, blah, 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 doesn't look a promising strategy, I might just say my main argument will be that we shouldn't take quantification over any kind of entity whatsoever at face value. Okay, so there I'm no longer using the exact words from the article. I'm kind of using some of the same words, but it's pretty much a different way of expressing and condensing that point. So I no longer have a quotation there. I've got a paraphrase, but I still need to put the reference in. Okay, so here I do it in exactly the same way. I've got rid of the quote marks, but I've still got Berto and Jago 2018, and I've still got the bibliography entry down in my bibliography. Again, if this was taken from a printed thing with page numbers, I would put the page number in. Because it's taken from a particular bit of that article, page 20 or whatever, I would put page number in. In general, if you're discussing a particular passage from a particular page, you put the page number into the citation here. If you're talking about the general gist in that book, so if you're talking about a book from 2018 and you're not looking at a particular passage, you're just talking about it in general, you don't put a page number in because you're not talking about a particular page. Okay, so that is how you do really good, 100% professional quality referencing. I told you it was super simple, and it is super simple. Now, okay, some universities, some departments might want things in a slightly different format. They might want footnotes for some obscure reason. I have no idea why anybody would want something so horrible, but apparently some people are kind of, stuck in the mid-20th century or something. Yeah, I mean, that happens sometimes, but look, if you can do this, you can do other kinds. Footnotes just mean you stick that stuff in a footnote. It's kind of a pain in the ass to jiggle it around, but, no big deal. If you know how to do it like this, you know how to do it pretty much anyhow. So my advice is take 10 minutes to learn how to do this properly. Be consistent with your academic practice. Whenever you take a quote or you take ideas from somewhere, stick the reference in, then add the reference to your bibliography at the same time. Then you won't come unstuck when you come to finish off your essay. You're under pressure with that deadline. You got to get it finished in like 15 minutes or whatever. You're quick. Oh no, where was that bit from? I got to find the reference. I can't find it. What am I going to do? Don't do it like that. Whenever you write down that quote or that idea, put the reference in, then that's good academic practice. Always do it like that, and you will never have a worry with plagiarism. Okay, so there you have an answer to my number one most asked question from my tutees: how to do referencing, how to avoid plagiarism. This is the last in this series of videos answering student questions, or at least it's the last one I've got planned. But if you guys ask me some questions down in the comments, like how do we do this, how do we do that, I don't understand what's going on here, I'm going to try and help you guys out. So maybe we will continue this series at some point in the future. But at this point, I hope it's been helpful to you. If it has, give the video a big old thumbs up. That really helps me out, and it helps other people to find this information. Thank you so much for watching this far. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you back here next time.